Hi everyone. In this module, let's understand about situational leaderships. To start with, the Hersey-Blanchard situational leadership theory states that instead of using just one style, successful leaders should change their leadership style based on maturity of the people they are leading and the details of the task. Using this theory, leaders should be able to place more or less emphasis on the tasks and more or less emphasis on the relationship with the people they are leading, depending on what needs to get the job done successfully. Situational leadership is defined as a leadership style in which the leader or the manager must adjust his style to match the development level of the followers he is leading. Situational leadership model requires leaders to vary his emphasis on tasks and relationship behavior to best deal with different levels of follower maturity. A situational leadership model, what does it include and how it works? Leaders are essentially people who know their goals and have the power to influence the thoughts and actions of others to gather their support and cooperation to achieve these goals. In case of leaders, these goals are rarely personal and generally to serve a larger good. With changing times, how leadership is perceived has changed, but it remains an important aspect of social fabric, nevertheless. The initial theories proposed that leaders are born and cannot be created. There are certain distinct characteristics possessed by few men which make them leaders. However, another interesting theory which was proposed is called as situational leadership theory. This theory says that the same leadership style cannot be practiced in all situations. Depending upon the circumstances and environmental context, leadership style also changes. The model encourages the leaders to analyze a particular situation in depth and then lead in the most appropriate manner suitable to that situation. There are several ways in which practicing situational leadership may benefit the leaders, the subordinates, as well as the organization, such as situational leadership greatly enhances performance. It enhances and leads to a heightened level of accountability, not only in management terms but throughout the entire organization. It increases the overall productivity of a subordinate. Because the way this entire model works is you analyze where exactly the situation is, where exactly the leadership style needs to be changed. You change it according to the times and then you work on it. It greatly boosts and improves your subordinate morale. Situation leadership creates an enhanced support system for the subordinates to work in. It reduces the turnover time. The few assumptions of situational leadership, based on this particular model works. Leaders should adapt their style to followers' maturity based on how ready and willing the follower is to perform a required task. There are 4 leadership styles that match the 4 combinations of high or low readiness and willingness. It presumes that leadership is about how the boss makes decisions. Right? Let's understand few components of situational leadership. The 4 different components for situational leadership is based on the interplay among of the following. The first one is direction. Direction that a leader gives, also known as task behavior. Second one is readiness. Readiness or development level that follows exhibit on a specific task, function, activity or objective that the leader is attempting to accomplish through the individuals or group. Socio-economic support. Socio-economic support that a leader provides, also known as a relationship behavior. These are a few components for leadership model. Now, how does this style works? So leadership style means the behavioral pattern of a leader who is an individual who attempts to influence others. Hence, the leadership style of every leader includes either the directive or task behavior, supportive or relationship behavior. So when I say these 2 styles, the directive and the task behavior is more like fixing. The first one is a directive and task. It's like you fix a task and then you direct team towards that. So tasks are given and then you say this is how it needs to be done, 1, 2, 3, next, and it goes on. That's more of a directive base. But when we say supportive or relationship behavior, this style of leadership is where it's more of you include people in the discussion, include people in how each thing needs to be worked, what could be done, how the task could be performed, and and then you support the team to ensure that they go towards achieving the goals. That's the other style. The different characteristics of an effective leader. Those characters are: number one, vision. A leader should have an ideal goal in mind, which proposes a future better than the status quo. Followers will be greatly influenced and be motivated by the extraordinary vision of a leader. Number two, capability to articulate vision. Leaders should clearly state in clear terms the vision in which a way that it is understandable to others. The articulation demonstrates an understanding to the followers needs, and hence acts as a motivating force all the time, right? So articulating the vision which you have, and how well it could be articulated, how easy it could be articulated, how easy it could be understood by the follower, will ensure the motivation level at a very different height. The third one is environmental sensitivity. Leaders should be sensitive to the environment and should always make realistic assessments of environmental constraints and resources that are required to bring about a change. The fourth one is self-confidence. Leaders should be self-confident and have complete confidence in their judgment and their ability. The followers look up to the leader, right? The kind of a confidence a leader exhibits, the kind of a motivation a follower gets through that, right? When the leaders are not self-confident, then the message doesn't pass in that way. So the self-confidence and have a complete confidence on their judgments, their abilities, their decisions, their views should be there. The fifth character is strong conviction about vision. Leaders should be strongly committed towards his or her vision and willing to take on high personal risk, incur high costs, and engage in self-sacrifice to achieve their vision. Anything that could be done because they're so strong convicted towards their vision. Sixth character is extraordinary personality. Effective leaders should have a behavior that is unique, novel, unconventional, and counter to norms. Such behavior evokes surprise and admiration in followers. Influence and lead change would be the seventh character. Effective leaders should be perceived as being a change agent and should evoke radical changes rather than just act as a caretaker of the status quo. So when we talk about skills, right, requisite leadership skills, there are two main types of leadership skills that should be available. The first one is personal skills. The second one is interpersonal skills. Let's try to understand each in little more detail. When I say personal skills, the three major types of personal skills required for requisite leadership skills are as below. Developing self-awareness, number one. Number two, managing stress. And number three, problem-solving skills. Let's understand each one in a little more detail. The first one, when I say developing self-awareness, it basically determines the values and priorities. Identifying cognitive style. Be aware of one's strengths and weaknesses, and assessing attitude towards change. This is what would help you develop in your self-awareness. When it comes to managing stress, coping with stressors is important. Manage time effectively and delegate to save time. Use appropriate stress management strategies is how you would be able to manage stress. The third personal skill is problem-solving skills. Problem-solving skills is typically solving problems creatively, right? Figuring out to solve each one, using rational approach in problem solving, and using creative approach in problem solving, and fostering innovation in others is how you enhance your problem solving skills. When it comes to interpersonal skills, the four major types of interpersonal skills required for requisite leadership skills are as follows. Number one is efficient communication. Number two is influential skills. Number three is motivating others. And number 4 is conflict management skills. Let's understand each in little more detail. Efficient communication. When I say efficient communication, you need to provide effective coaching, counsel others, listen actively, understand concerns and problems by proper probing. Use questioning and probing for better understanding of others, of your team. Use effective communication for building rapport with others. These practices will slowly help you to build your interpersonal skills on efficient communication. Influential skill. The second interpersonal skills that are required. Influential skills are very, very critical. Project powers, and influences. People look up to this, right? How well this influence skill is there in a leader, which take him to a very different level. Now, how to enhance those skills are basically exercising influence on others, empowering others, project a self-confident and a strong image, right? Empowering others is a super critical aspect of influential skills. When people working around you, not just sharing, delegating a task, right, but giving responsibility for that, giving accountability for that, right, giving powering them to take steps towards that will ensure you being in a better position to influence people, right? Project a self-confident and a strong image. When you are aware of something what you are doing, when you are very, very clear about the vision, right? When leader is crystal clear about what is the vision, where to go, how to go, what are steps to be taken, you automatically get into that level of confidence. And when you have a self-confidence, it needs to be projected and create a very, very strong image. The third interpersonal skills is motivating others. Motivation is a very interesting topic where everyone always looks for that, right? How well it can be done, how well people get engaged to do something, right? How well people love to go to that extra mile, right? Only when only the motivated employees or motivated set of people could do that level of things. How do you enhance those things? Basically, you need to work, you need to diagnose poor performance. Diagnosing poor performance is an important part of motivating others, because when people do not perform good, normally they just set back, right? They just leave from the crowd. But when you diagnose it, when you sit and figure out detailed why exactly someone's performance is poor and what is it that can be done to enhance, the moment poor performance start performing, then you would see a very different level of motivation coming out of that. That's one very, very critical way how to enhance the motivation skills. The next thing could be creating a motivating environment. See, motivating environment is where people are open, people could discuss things, people could talk about stuff, right? People could put their ideas, views, and at the same time, people take the critics well, people understand what needs to be worked on. It's an important interpersonal skills which needs to be developed to create a kind of a motivating environment so that people are at a motivated level. Reward accomplishments. Every accomplishment needs to be rewarded. Let's not look at an accomplishment as a small one, big one, a major one. In a team, right, when somebody achieves something, right, it's an accomplishment that needs to be rewarded, that needs to be discussed, that needs to be informed, right? People need to understand, okay, there is something that I have done, I have accomplished, and then, reward yourself for that. Provide proper feedback is another way how you could motivate people. Providing proper feedback, right? Providing constructive feedback is super critical. Normally, when we say feedback, most of the times it gets like that, right? Team knows what are the things that are not done, what are the things that are not in track, things that have not happened. But when you say providing proper feedback, is basically feedback which should lead for an improvement, feedback that should help them to enhance something, to change something, to work on something. When a proper feedback is delivered, it's a super motivation for people, right? People just understand this is what they need to work, and then that feedback is not just for that work but for the life, where it could be used for the next part of the work as well. And the other way of motivating others is monitoring performance, right? There are different members doing a similar level of task in an organization. It's very critical to understand where the performance is going, how the performance is going, and monitor it regularly. Where is it? How is it? Am I improving, not improving? What needs to be done? What other small steps to be done? Things which you monitor, you would be able to enhance that. Something which you cannot monitor, you cannot enhance. So monitoring performance is one of, again, the important factor which ensures motivation for the team members. The last skill for the interpersonal skill section called conflict management skills. Now, as a leader, it is important to have these skills. How do you manage conflicts? Few things that you could consider is managing conflicts effectively. Now, how do you manage conflicts effectively is not being one-sided for any conflict, or taking a side of a particular individual, or taking passing on a judgment without understanding the entire details over there. Conflict management in itself is a skill that needs to be worked on. To manage conflicts effectively, one should work on few basic skills like, say, listening to people clearly, understanding it, breaking the conflict into smaller pieces, showing how the bigger purpose of the work, then sticking on a smaller conflict where people get stuck with. The second one towards the conflict management skill is identifying cause of a conflict, right? It's always important to figure out what actually is the start of it. Maybe if you remove the cause, the conflict itself could be removed. Maybe if you could address the cause, such conflicts would not pop up again in your work life. Select and apply appropriate strategies for conflict management. There are different strategies which could be applied during the conflict management. Figure out which suits to the right situation and then apply to that. And resolve confrontations, right? Whatever confrontations, it needs to be resolved. People needs to be in a very positive atmosphere, right? People needs to not feel that they have been taken for a ride or they have been cheated. It's important to understand the conflict very clearly and then solve it carefully, wherein people should look at the bigger picture. People should look at the purpose, should look at the goal that needs to be achieved, and then the conflict itself looks pretty small in front of them. There are 3 general leadership styles, right, based on context of decision making, right? I just thought a small brief about those things. One is authoritarian or autocratic, what it calls. In this style, the leader makes all decisions using his or her own knowledge, contacts or methods. It's mostly autocratic, right? That's one of the method. The second style or second leadership style is participative. In this style, the leader makes all decisions after active consultation with staff to solicit their ideas and input, where he includes, it's more of an inclusive process, right? Where people are included in the process of decision making, and that's exactly how it is taken care of. And the third one is delegated or self-managed. In this style of leaders sets strategy and direction and is not usually involved in the decision making. All decisions are pushed to people at a lowest possible level of the organization, where people are delegated. They take up their decisions and then they come back. So these 3 types, when I quickly say autocratic, participative and delegated style, you need to figure out which of these styles works when, and to what situation what works nice should be used. That's all what you should be considering when I talk about situational leadership.